Hello and welcome to another episode of Virtual Legality. I'm your host, Richard Hoeg, managing member of the Hoeg Law business law firm of Northville, Michigan. And today we are going to talk once again about YouTube in what has turned into a week of talking about big tech giants and social media and how they are interacting with both their users, the government, and everything in between. Now, today we actually have something that YouTube announced a while ago, but that didn't come to my attention until very recently. As of yesterday, I received an email from YouTube that said, basically, we are now enabling your channel to use what they are calling self-certification. And at the same time that they sent out that email, they actually put up a video that talked about how self-certification is to work. Now, I thought, hey, that's interesting, because if you've been following Virtual Legality, you know that one of the problems that I've been having with YouTube of late is that they are essentially demonetizing all of my videos from the off, and then even after manual review, holding that some of those videos are not advertiser suitable. And if you're not familiar with how YouTube works, I think at least intuitively we can all understand that YouTube wants to make money. And so if you don't have a monetized video, if you aren't part of their partner program or whatever it winds up being called in any given fiscal year, they are less inclined to advantage your videos, to get your message out there, to actually get you views, because if you aren't monetized, your views don't make YouTube money. So what I have found, even in my limited kind of interactions with the YouTube system, I think we're up to 250 plus some odd videos here on the Hoeg Law YouTube channel, is that when they get demonetized, and especially when they get demonetized by the automated system at the start, they are much less likely to be suggested, they are much less likely to be clicked on, and they just don't grow. And they don't grow the subscriber base for the Hoeg Law YouTube channel. They just don't help that much. Now, that doesn't bug me so much. I like to talk about these things because I like to talk about them. I think they're helpful. I think a lot of people come into the comments to these videos and say, hey, Rick, that was helpful. That's what I love to hear. That's why I do this. At the same time, it is very frustrating to make a video like I did yesterday that we will talk about that doesn't have anything that would even potentially run afoul of what they claim are their advertiser guidelines, have it be demonetized, and then not get any other message about why that might have been. And so when YouTube offered something like this, offered something like the self-certification program, I say, okay, that might be something that really works. That might be something that could be very, very useful, because these robots are clearly not doing the job that I think that they should be doing. However, as we dive deeper into all this, one of the things that really kind of shone throughout what they are describing here is that, as I say in the very subtle thumbnail that I put out for this video, it's a trap. It's a trap, and it's a trap that is especially problematic for folks like, say, me, who absolutely 100% believe that essentially nothing that they do on their channel, which is a brand device for the Hoeg Law law firm, is something that isn't advertiser friendly. I don't swear. I don't talk about violence. I don't spread conspiracy theories. I don't do any of the things that they highlight as problematic for their advertisers, and that makes sense, right? I am a law firm. We're trying to sell services and try to be professional in doing so, and hopefully educate and illuminate along the way. And yet, those bots still demonetize almost everything that I put out. And so if I'm not quote-unquote accurate about my self-certification, YouTube starts to have problems with me, as we will see. So we've got a couple of documents here that I wanted to talk about. We've got their actual kind of YouTube help review of what's happening here that I think is going to be important to read, but I also want to talk about what was actually said in that video. So I took the transcript from the video in case you haven't seen that. It's only a couple minutes long. It'll be linked in the description to this video. You can check it out yourself. But I wanted to talk about what's actually happening here, because it really is a trap. And it's especially a trap for those folks that are currently dealing with robots, algorithms, whatever their automated systems are that YouTube uses on any given day that are mischaracterizing, or that the creators firmly and fervently believe are mischaracterizing their work. And so this isn't a solve for that, regardless of what YouTube has been saying. So let's look at what was actually said in this video. Hey creators, as you likely know, YouTube relies on a combination of machine learning and human input to decide what content complies with our advertiser-friendly guidelines and what doesn't. In other words, what content might get you a yellow $ icon, which means limited ads, versus a green $ icon, which means fully monetizable. Sometimes these automated systems can make mistakes, which we know can be frustrating. I'm Tim, and in this video, we'll talk about a new program we are testing with some creators, now including Hoeg Law, called self-certification, where you tell us what videos do and don't comply with our advertiser-friendly guidelines. We then use your input to help decide what ads to run on your video. So let's stop for just a second. The mission statement of this process, what YouTube is going out and selling it as, is that the robots sometimes make mistakes. That, hey, when you put a video up, it gives you the yellow light, which happens on virtually all of my videos, and then you ask us to manually review it, and it gets a green light later on. Generally after most people would have clicked on it, but hey, you know what? I can understand that they're under volume, they've got problems. I can be reasonable about all of that. However, a number of my videos have been manually reviewed and determined to be non-advertiser friendly for no reason that I can determine, which raises a secondary question that absolutely isn't addressed by this program. So they say, this is how to fix robot mistakes, and this is how you do it. The goal is to reduce errors from our automated reviews and help your videos get monetized more accurately from the start. Let's walk through how this works. If you know your content complies with our advertiser-friendly guidelines, then the process is actually pretty simple. Once you've turned monetization on under content ratings, select none of the above. And the page that they show says essentially that you would click on these various things that say you aren't compliant in some fashion. If you're not familiar with our advertiser-friendly guidelines, click the link in the description. If you know your content doesn't comply with our advertiser-friendly guidelines, then rate your video accordingly. It doesn't comply. Easy enough. You should see here your video is going to receive limited ads or a yellow icon. We know it might feel weird to tell us your video isn't suitable for all advertisers, but when you're able to rate your content accurately, it lets us know we can start to trust your ratings for future uploads and not have to rely on our automated systems. Keep track of that word accurately. It's going to pop up in some interesting places, especially with the background that I just gave you, that these things are inaccurately labeling virtually every video from this channel. If you are not sure how to rate your video, upload is unlisted and err on the side of caution by selecting the next option down. Once you do that, request a manual review, and that way our human raters can give you a final decision before it goes out to all your viewers. Once you have confirmation, you can publish your video or go back and make edits and upload a new version that would hopefully be monetizable. Now that's all well and good, right? That process is cumbersome, but it at least makes sense. However, we are currently in the age of Corona, and it's worth noting that YouTube has said basically that it doesn't have the manpower to do any of these reviews at speed in its current system. And so YouTube is going to be relying almost exclusively on the bots, on the algorithm, to figure out what is monetizable and what isn't monetizable. Which leaves us with, okay, if you don't know what is accurate, whether it complies, then ask for a human rating and keep it unlisted until we deign to review it. Now, unfortunately, if you're doing something like the Hoeg Law YouTube channel, if you're doing something like Virtual Legality that tries to react at a reasonable speed to the news items of the day, to talk about what legal and business issues are raised by things like Twitter language changes, like things like streaming policies for Final Fantasy VII, whatever it might be, those things are relevant for a short window of time, and we want to get that stuff out there as soon as possible. So this isn't a bad solution necessarily, but it certainly is a problematic one where YouTube is in another video, in another comment, in another email saying, hey, we don't actually have the people to do this. Also note that when you get that final decision from a human rater, they'll leave some notes as to why that decision was made that will help you understand the choice for future context. Now that's brand new, at least as claimed here. One of the things that I have complained about is that we don't get any context for what was done. It says, why self-certification? If you disagree, if you have a manual review, the reviewer will check out your video and provide feedback, which sounds great, right? That's one of the things that I have asked for is communications transparency from YouTube, because if you don't get that feedback, you can't correct your actions. I literally have no idea why some of my videos are still demonetized, because we talk about business and law in a very advertiser-friendly way here on the Hoeg Law YouTube channel. But I say, okay, great, they provided a link here. What is that going to look like? And you click on it, and YouTube says, oh, you know, we got that link. We've got it in the support help page, but we don't have any of that ready yet. Sorry. Glad you're excited about it, though, but we don't have any indication of what that will look like either now or in the future. Okay, we'll take it on faith that that will, in fact, happen. But now, here's where the rubber hits the road. This is why I wanted to make this video. Why, when looking at this, I said it's a trap. So what happens if you don't rate your content accurately? Now understand, the word accurately there is doing a lot of heavy lifting. I personally believe that none of my videos on this channel have ever not met the advertiser-friendly guidelines that YouTube has put forth. They have never suggested to me why some of them, even after manual review, continue to be demonetized. But I think it is worth noting that to the extent that that manual reviewer disagrees with what I said and agrees with what the robot said, that would be deemed inaccurate. So what happens if you don't rate your content accurately? If I go and I click the box that says, absolutely, this is advertiser friendly, I'm not swearing, I'm not spreading conspiracies, I'm not showing violence, I'm not attacking children, issuing ad hominem attacks on anybody. This is absolutely advertiser friendly. If you're unable to identify your content accurately, we default back to using our automated systems. That's fine. Okay. So the worst thing that can happen is that you just go back to doing what you're doing and I don't understand what you're doing and there we are. No, that's not the worst. As you can see in yellow, however, do know that repeatedly misrepresenting your content, which, ooh, that's a loaded word, right? We have a reasonable disagreement, YouTube, you and I. I don't think any of this is a problem. You do. You haven't told me why. Am I misrepresenting what is going on this channel? Sounds like you think that I am. If you repeatedly misrepresent your content, it can lead to your channel being reviewed for inclusion in the YouTube Partner Program. That is the program, if you're not familiar with YouTube, that actually allows any of the videos to be demonetized. And I can tell you, once the channel was monetized here at Hoeg Law, that was a big bump for getting any kind of visuals, any kind of push for our videos on YouTube. It is clear, and I don't begrudge them this, that they advantage the videos that can make them money. And so you say, hey, if you click that button and we decide that you were wrong, for no reason really, then we could potentially take your partnership status away. So when I make this video and I say it's a trap, it really and truly is. Even though YouTube says that this self-certification program is designed to address mistakes that their algorithms are making, it isn't. Those folks that are having those mistakes be made are the most likely to click on this button to self-certify, and then YouTube can still go, and the robot will still look at it, and it will identify misrepresentations and quote-unquote inaccuracy, and if they decide you are doing that enough, if their robots disagree with you, if their manual review disagrees with you enough, you jeopardize the actual account status, your status in the partnership program. And then they say a bunch of other things here in the comments. It says, hey, rate it accurately. That helps us out. Be accurate with your ratings, especially for videos that are not advertiser friendly. Don't try to snow us. It's more important for us that you accurately identify brand unsafe content rather than just get yellow icons. And if you're not able to identify yellow icons yourself, we need to keep using the automated systems to do so. But oh, by the way, we reserve the right to decide that you are trying to cheat this system, which we admit doesn't work. That this self-certification program exists because it doesn't work. And in fact, that's exactly what I have seen in the past, right? And this isn't nearly big enough. We can make that bigger. Hi, Hoeg Law. After manually reviewing your video from yesterday, which is actually pretty good speed for them right now, we've confirmed that it isn't suitable for all advertisers. As a result, it will continue to be demonetized. And this is the note that you get on these kinds of things. So I agree. In respect of self-certification, and hopefully it's not just limited to that, when a manual reviewer disagrees with you, when they demonetize your video, if they're going to give you any kind of context for why that is, that would be helpful. My fear is that that reviewer is likely to say sensitive items. You said the word 5G. You said the word coronavirus. Oh my gosh, you put them right next to each other. What are you even thinking? That's too sensitive. Nobody wants to advertise on these kinds of things. I will also tell you there's a kind of shadow rule here. There's a kind of shadow rule with respect to YouTube. I will tell you that it's far more likely for a video to be demonetized if it talks about YouTube at all. So that includes essentially all of my COPPA videos that talked about YouTube throwing its creators under the bus with respect to what it was doing in COPPA. It somewhat includes Facebook and Twitter at the same time. Really anything that talks about these social media companies, as far as I can see from my experience, is more likely to get that early flag and is also more likely to have something like this happen where it is manually reviewed and determined to not meet advertiser guidelines for no reasons that I can see. If you're not familiar with this video that I did yesterday, it was just a video, even though it talks about 5G and coronavirus, that talks about the changes that these social media giants are making to their terms and conditions in the face of the coronavirus and the 5G arson issue that I talked about yesterday and was reported on by the Associated Press. These are news items, sure, but they're legal ones. I was talking about what users of Twitter should be expecting from the language that Twitter put forth. And so when we talk about these kinds of things, there's absolutely nothing that an advertiser should be afraid of here, but YouTube doesn't want it out there for reasons that are beyond my ken. A cynic might suggest that it's because it casts a bad light on all of these companies directly. And I don't necessarily think it does that. I think it's trying to be educational and illuminating, but certainly someone that was scared of how that might be interpreted could read it a different direction. Which all leads us to this. Hey, as I said, I can make myself bigger. See, we've got a Hoeg Law hat and everything. Let me know if you want these. I might be able to put them on a store somewhere. But which leads me all to this. If you are worried about what YouTube is doing right now, especially in these circumstances where a robot is going to decide these things for you, in most cases, based on what they have described, based on what they have put forth, I can't honestly recommend using the self-certification program because it's just too big a risk. Yeah, it's a nuisance. Yeah, it's a hassle when these robots declare everything that I say as demonetizable, as not advertiser-friendly. But I ask for manual review, and 8 out of 10 wind up getting monetized because the manual reviewer looks at it and says, this is a lawyer talking about statutes, so we're going to allow it. Obviously, it's not a problem. This isn't an issue for our advertisers. Now, a couple of those still maintain being a problem. That's a problem for me. But at the end of the day, whether or not it's a problem for me, I just don't think that it makes sense to use the self-certification program if it could potentially put your entire account at risk. And so that's been Virtual Legality for today. If you like this video, please share it around. I think it's important information for YouTubers in general. It's certainly important information for the ongoing conversation amongst folks that are talking about social media and how they are controlling the messaging on their systems. Because what I'm talking about in this space is not something that I find to be terribly controversial. It's trying to be educational. It certainly uses my educational background to talk about things that I have a great deal of experience with in my 15 years of practicing law. But ultimately, if you take nothing else away from this video, just take this. I can't recommend using the self-certification program. And if you think you are at all on the line and that the robots might wind up disagreeing with you, don't click that button because YouTube has reserved the right to really make life difficult. Thank you so much for checking this out on YouTube, or if you listen to it in its podcast form, I really appreciate it. Please do leave a review where you listen to it at. Like, subscribe, hit bells, hit buttons, click all, whatever else it might be. I very much appreciate it. And please do leave comments to the video about how you feel about either the new camera, my hat, what I had to say, or anything else that you might disagree with. And I will catch you on the very next episode of Virtual Legality. Virtual Legality is a YouTube video series with audio podcast versions presented as commentary and for education and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute legal advice and does not create an attorney-client relationship. If you have legal questions about the topics discussed, please consult your own legal counsel.